The door was still warm from my father's hand when my daughter asked if he knew we had nowhere else to go. He did. So did my mother, my brother, and my sister. They had 2 empty bedrooms and a finished basement, but they still sent us away. I put my 3 children back in the car and whispered, "Watch what happens." What could a nearly broke mother do next? I stood on my parents' porch with 3 children behind me and 1 black trash bag at my feet. It was Sunday afternoon, cold enough that every breath showed in the air. The light was fading over the street where I had learned to ride a bike and run home whenever the world felt too large. Behind me, Emma wore her school backpack. Lucy held a small yellow pillow against her chest. Ben's winter coat was already too tight across his shoulders. The bag at my feet held clothes, cold medicine, the children's birth certificates, and a folder of papers I had grabbed without understanding how important they would become. My father opened the door. He looked at me first, then he looked at the children. Over his shoulder, I could see the guest room lamp glowing in the hallway. The basement door stood open. A football game played downstairs, loud enough that I could hear the crowd cheering through the floor. There was space, plenty of it. My father lowered his voice. He told me that he and my mother had talked, and they did not think it was a good idea for us to stay there. I tried to keep my voice steady. "I'm not asking you to choose sides, Dad. I just need somewhere safe for the kids for a few weeks." He looked toward the driveway. He said, "I could go home, calm down, and give my husband another chance." Then my brother came up from the basement with a soda can in his hand. He lived there rent-free and had nearly the entire lower floor to himself. He smiled and said there really was no room. My sister stood farther back in the hallway. She had come for Sunday dinner. She told me I was letting my emotions destroy the children's stability. That word stayed with me. Stability. As if I had not been the one packing lunches, making doctor appointments, helping with homework, and sitting beside sick beds at night. As if stability had appeared by itself. My father looked at the children one more time. "I'm sorry," he said. Then he slowly closed the door. I used to think cruelty had to come with shouting. That day, I learned it could sound like a quiet apology, followed by a lock clicking into place. Emma took my hand as we walked down the steps. "Grandpa knew we had nowhere else to go, didn't he?" I could not answer her. I put the bag in the trunk. I buckled each child into the car. Then I sat behind the wheel and looked at the house in the rearview mirror. I did not know what I was going to build. I did not know how I would survive the next week. I only knew I would never beg at that door again. "Watch what happens," I whispered. 3 weeks before I stood on that porch, a phone lit up on my kitchen counter. I was stirring soup when the screen came alive. Mark had left his phone on the kitchen counter while he took a shower. The dishwasher was running. Ben sat at the table, swinging his legs and asking whether there would be grilled cheese with dinner. On the refrigerator, 3 school calendars overlapped beneath a grocery list. From the outside, our life still looked orderly. Mark traveled often for work. He earned good money, remembered our anniversary, and rarely raised his voice. I worked part-time at the hospital so I could handle school pickups, parent meetings, sick days, and every small emergency that came with 3 children. Then the phone buzzed. A woman's name appeared above 3 messages. I still think about Thursday night. "You said you would find a way this weekend. Delete this." For a few seconds, I did nothing. The soup continued to simmer. The dishwasher kept humming. Ben asked me the same question again. I picked up my own phone and photographed the screen. I wrote down the woman's name, placed Mark's phone exactly where he had left it, and returned to the stove. "Yes," I told Ben, "there will be grilled cheese." My marriage had just changed shape, but dinner still had to be served. Later that evening, after the children were in bed, a banking alert appeared on my phone. $12,600 had been moved out of our joint savings account. The receiving account was listed only by an abbreviated code I did not recognize. That money was our emergency fund. It was supposed to cover house repairs, medical bills, school costs, and childcare if anything went wrong. Something had gone wrong. I downloaded the statement, emailed a copy to a private account, and printed another at work the next morning. When I confronted Mark, he did not fully deny the affair. He called it something that was not serious. He said work had been difficult. He said a divorce would damage his reputation and affect his position. Then he told me not to destroy our family over a few messages. His voice stayed calm. Mine did not. That was one of his gifts. He could speak softly enough to make everyone else look unreasonable. He wanted the matter kept inside our home. No calls to friends. No mention to family. No lawyer. "You are not asking me to protect our family," I said. "You are asking me to protect your image." I told him I would meet with an attorney. Mark leaned against the counter as if we were discussing a repair bill. Then he said he had already called my mother. At least she is still thinking clearly. That was when I understood he was not afraid of losing our family. He was afraid of losing control of the story. My mother called before 8 the next morning. She did not ask whether I was safe. She did not ask how the children were doing, how long the affair had been going on, or where the missing money had gone. Instead, she asked if I was sure I was not overreacting. Mark had used the same word the night before. My mother talked about marriage, loyalty, and the damage divorce could do to children. She reminded me that Mark had always provided well. She said long marriages went through hard seasons, and leaving the house would only make things worse. Then she called my decision impulsive. Families often call a woman impulsive at the exact moment she stops carrying the consequences for everyone else. I tried once more. I am not asking to move in forever. I need 2 weeks, just enough time to meet with a lawyer and find somewhere safe. My mother said there was no room. There were 2 empty bedrooms and a finished basement with a couch and bathroom. The problem was not space. They believed giving me a place to stay would encourage the divorce. Mark had a good salary, a calm voice, and the advantage of telling his version first. In a family afraid of disruption, the first story is often the one people choose to believe. That afternoon, a coworker gave me the name of a family law attorney named Laura Mitchell. Laura told me not to delete anything. She warned me not to empty the joint accounts, sign papers, or argue by text. I needed screenshots of the balances, records of the transfers, and a daily log showing who handled school, medical appointments, and childcare. She explained that temporary housing would not automatically cost me custody, as long as the children were safe and their routines stayed consistent. So I stopped trying to convince people who had already decided not to hear me. I packed clothes, medicine, school supplies, birth certificates, bank statements, Ben's stuffed dog, and Lucy's yellow pillow. There was no time for suitcases. Everything went into one black bag. Mark watched from the hallway. He told me the house would still be there when I calmed down. What he meant was that I could return if I agreed to become quiet again. That Sunday I drove to my parents' house. There was the football game downstairs, my father's face, my brother's smile, my sister's judgment. Then the door closed. An hour later, we stood at an extended stay motel. The clerk swiped my credit card. The screen showed one word: declined. Mark had locked the card. I paid for the first week with emergency cash hidden in my wallet. After the children fell asleep, I opened the banking app. The checking account held less than $400. The first transfer, $12,600, was still gone. Another $3,200 had been moved that night. My credit limit had been reduced to 0. I took screenshots of the time, the amount, the receiving code, and the change to the card. The next morning, I called Laura. She told me not to threaten Mark, post anything online, or send angry messages. She asked me to forward every screenshot, open an account in my own name, and record every dollar I spent on the children. Life at the extended stay motel became a list of small decisions. The room had 2 beds and a narrow kitchenette. Breakfast was toast, cereal, and coffee that tasted like warm water. After 10, I carried our clothes to the coin laundry and counted quarters beneath buzzing lights. People think hardship is dramatic. Usually, it is not. It is coins in a washing machine, weekly room charges, and wondering whether 1 tank of gas will get 3 children to school through Friday. I kept them in the same schools every morning. I drove 25 minutes to preserve their routines. I asked the school office to keep our temporary address private. Emma began saving a cereal box for Ben. She asked how many nights the room was paid for. Whenever I mentioned going somewhere, she packed her backpack before I finished the sentence. That frightened me more than the bank balance. At work, Denise noticed I arrived early, stayed late, and ate lunch at my desk. One afternoon, she closed my office door and asked, "Do you need more hours, or do you need a way out?" "Both," I said. She told me a full-time position had opened. It came with health insurance, paid time off, a steady schedule, and enough income to qualify for an apartment. It was not charity. I had worked there for years, earned the certification, and trained new employees. For the first time in weeks, I saw a path forward. Then I returned to the motel and found a process server waiting in the lobby. Mark had filed an emergency custody motion. He claimed I had taken the children without a plan. He said they were living in a motel while I worked long hours. He said he had a house, a higher income, and a more stable life. He wanted the children placed with him until I found suitable housing. He had locked my card, drained our savings, and then used my lack of money as evidence that I was unstable. That was not concern. That was power pretending to be responsibility. The hearing was less than a week away. If I lost, the children could be sent back to a father who had rarely raised them. I called Laura from the parking lot. She listened, then said, "Do not try to tell the court you are a good mother. Prove who has actually been doing the work." The next morning, Laura and I spread 10 years of parenting across her conference table. She would not let me write that Mark never cared, or that I had done everything alone. "Those were feelings," she said. "Feelings mattered, but the court needed dates, names, and records. So we built a file. School emails showed that I answered teachers, attended conferences, signed permission slips, and handled every emergency contact. Medical records showed that I took the children to appointments, picked up prescriptions, and sat through Ben's allergy tests and ear infections. Daycare logs showed my name at drop-off and pickup, day after day. Then there were Mark's messages. "Handle it yourself. I'm traveling. Can you move the appointment?" Those words had once felt ordinary. On paper, they became a pattern. We added his flight schedules, hotel receipts, and work emails. Some weekends he had claimed to be on business. He had actually been in the city where the other woman lived. The financial section came last. The transfers, the reduced credit limit, the nearly empty checking account, the motel receipts, the cost of gas, school lunches, medicine, and one pair of shoes Ben had outgrown almost overnight. I wanted to leave the motel receipts out. They made me feel exposed, ashamed. Laura slid them back toward me. "These do not prove you failed," she said. "They prove you found a safe place, paid on time, and kept 3 children in school." I looked at the stack again. For years, the work I did had been called small: lunches, appointments, forms, fever checks, rides. Spread across one table, it became 10 years of motherhood. People who truly care for children leave evidence, not on social media, in calendars, signatures, pharmacy records, and calls made at 2 a.m. The hearing room was smaller than I expected. Papers shifted across the table. A chair scraped behind me. I kept both hands folded so no one could see them trembling. Mark arrived in a dark suit with an expensive attorney and the same calm voice he used at home. His lawyer talked about his income, the house, the yard, and the children's bedrooms. Then he talked about the motel. Laura did not answer with a speech. She asked simple questions. Who was Emma's homeroom teacher? What medication was Ben allergic to? When was Lucy's last dental visit? Who enrolled them in the after-school program? Who stayed home when Ben had a fever the month before? Mark missed one answer, then another. Finally, he said he worked long hours so I could handle those things. Laura waited. Then she asked, So you are asking for primary custody based on responsibilities you just admitted you never performed? No one laughed. The silence was enough. Laura asked to submit his travel records, his messages about the children, and the bank statements. Mark's attorney stood the moment the financial records touched the table. That was the first time all morning Mark stopped looking calm. The magistrate allowed the financial records to be reviewed. The statements showed a clear order of events. The first transfer happened shortly after I questioned Mark about the affair. The second came after I left the house. My credit card was locked before I reached the motel. Then Laura pointed to a payment connected to an apartment lease in the other woman's name. It was not a criminal case. No one used dramatic words. The records simply showed that Mark had been preparing a new life while limiting my access to the money we had saved together. I did not look at him. I looked at the pages in front of me and remembered how that money had been built. Clothes I did not buy, vacations we postponed. Extra shifts I accepted. Grocery lists adjusted so carefully that nothing went to waste. I had once thought betrayal meant another person entering a marriage. That morning, I understood it could also mean taking the children's safety fund and using it to build your own exit. The magistrate reviewed the school records, medical files, daycare logs, and financial timeline. Then she gave her temporary decision. Mark's emergency request was denied. The children would remain primarily with me. He received a specific temporary visitation schedule. Neither of us could move more joint money except for ordinary household expenses. Mark was ordered to begin paying temporary child support, calculated from the date I filed for divorce. All communication about the children had to be in writing or through a court-approved parenting application. It was not the end of the divorce. It was not a complete victory. But the children were leaving with me. Outside the courtroom, Laura closed her folder and said, "Today, you protected their stability. Tomorrow, we keep building the rest." Mark caught up with me in the hallway. He kept his voice low. "You are turning this into a war." For years, I would have explained myself. I would have tried to make him understand my intentions. That day, I did not. "No," I said. "I am documenting what you did." Then I walked away. In a courtroom, memory becomes heavier when it comes with dates, signatures, and receipts. I had spent years believing that what I carried for the family was invisible. It was not invisible anymore. That afternoon, I returned to the motel with the children. The clerk at the front desk handed me an envelope from the apartment office. Inside were 2 words: "Application approved." The apartment had 2 bedrooms, a small living room, and an old kitchen. It was still in the same school district. We could move in 9 days. A sample key was clipped to the appointment letter. It was not a beautiful home, but it was the first door in weeks that no one else had the right to close in front of my children. People say a key is only a piece of metal. After what we had lived through, it felt as heavy as a whole life. 9 days later, the apartment manager placed the real key in my hand. Emma stood behind me with a box. Lucy carried her yellow pillow. Ben held his plastic dinosaurs. Inside were 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, 2 mattresses, a folding table, 4 used chairs, and a lamp from Denise. "This is our home," I said. Emma did not step inside. She looked at the key and asked, "How long is this place paid for?" The motel had taught my daughter to measure safety by nights remaining. The girls shared 1 room. Ben slept in mine. Lucy chose yellow curtains, and we ate pizza on the floor. I taped the rent schedule inside a cabinet, then placed the black trash bag from my parents' porch at the bottom of a closet. I was not ready to throw it away. To children who had slept in a motel, a door with its own key felt like a promise that the world would still be there. That first weekend, Mark came for the children. He stepped inside without waiting. He looked at the shared bedroom, Ben's mattress, and the unopened boxes. Then he began taking pictures. "The court needs to know how they are living," he said. His house had a room for each child. He said the temporary order was not a victory and he could ask for another review. Then he turned to Emma. "You know your room is still waiting for you at home, right?" She said nothing. Pickups happen outside from now on, I said. You are not allowed to photograph my home. Mark called me sensitive. After they left, I recorded the time, his words, and what he photographed, then sent everything to Laura. Some people cannot stand to watch you rebuild because every wall proves their control is no longer necessary. 3 days later, the school office called. My parents and Megan had come to take the girls to dinner. They said I worked too much and the children needed a more stable family. The school refused to release them. My mother came on the phone and said families should not need permission. You need my permission to remove my children from school, I said. She accused me of punishment. Megan said the children should not be dragged into adult anger. They had closed a door in front of those same children. I removed every relative from the pickup list, added a password, and asked the school to document the incident. Laura sent a letter telling them not to return without permission. I once thought boundaries pushed people away. Sometimes they are doors adults build so children stop paying for family selfishness. That night, my mother left a voicemail. She did not apologize. She only said, "This is not over." I saved it and sent it to Laura. I did not know those words would follow us into the final custody decision. Laura listened to my mother's voicemail twice before she spoke. She told me not to answer in anger or make permanent promises about cutting everyone off. From then on, every contact with my family needed to be in writing, and every attempt to cross a boundary needed to be saved. Calm and consistent matters, she said, especially when everyone else keeps accusing. A custody evaluator was appointed weeks later. She reviewed both homes, the children's routines, our work schedules, school records, medical care, and how well Mark and I could cooperate. When she came to my apartment, I did not try to make it look like something it was not. The carpet was worn. The kitchen was narrow, the girls shared a room, and Ben's bed was beside mine. But the homework table was clear, the medicine was locked away, the school calendar was posted near the refrigerator. I showed her the after-school plan, the signed lease, and every rent receipt paid on time. Emma was interviewed alone. Later, the evaluator told me she had asked one question: "What makes you feel safe?" Emma had not mentioned bedrooms, square footage, or a yard. She said, "When Mom says she will be there, she is there." That was all. Sometimes the truth does not need a speech. Mark's house was larger. Each child had a separate room. The yard was neat, and the furniture matched. But he did not know the school portal password. He planned to hire evening care several nights a week. His travel schedule was still full. The children's rooms looked prepared, but rarely used. The evaluator noticed women's clothing in the main bedroom and toiletries in the bathroom, even though Mark insisted the other woman did not live there. A large house can impress someone for 10 minutes. Children know who wakes up when they are sick. They know who remembers gym day, who signs the forms, and who will be waiting at school at 3 in the afternoon. Mark's attorney tried to use the school incident against me. He claimed I was isolating the children from their extended family. Laura answered with the school report, my mother's voicemail, the unauthorized pickup attempt, and messages still calling my divorce impulsive. The issue was not whether the children could love their grandparents. The issue was whether those adults respected the rules protecting them. The preliminary report recommended that the children remain primarily with me. It advised against changing schools, required Mark to attend a co-parenting class, and recommended all communication continue through the court-approved application. For the first time, his version of stability was losing ground, but the financial questions remained. Mark had still not produced complete records for the transferred money. Laura placed a formal disclosure request in front of me and pointed to the name attached to the apartment deposit. "Now we know whose new life was built with your children's money," she said. The money trail led directly to the woman Mark had told me meant nothing. The bank records showed the apartment deposit first, then came a bedroom set, plane tickets for a weekend trip, his first legal retainer, and a ring purchased weeks before I found the messages. None of it was treated like a criminal investigation. The point was simple. Mark had used family money, reduced my access to cash, watched me move 3 children into a motel, and called me unstable. Once the records were complete, his attorney stopped talking about primary custody. Instead, they proposed something that sounded reasonable until Laura and I read the details. Mark wanted nearly equal parenting time, even though his travel schedule had not changed. He wanted the missing money left out of the property division. He wanted the financial records kept private. He also wanted both of us barred from discussing the affair around the children. I agreed with the last part. The children did not need adult betrayal placed in their laps. But I would not erase the money. I would not accept a schedule Mark could not personally keep. I would not waive child support just to make the case end faster. And I would not sign anything that prevented the truth from being shown to the court. People often tell women to accept less in exchange for peace. But peace purchased with your children's rights is only another kind of silence. The final agreement reflected what the records had shown. The children would remain primarily with me. Mark would have every other weekend and part of the school holidays. Business trips had to be disclosed in advance. Child support would be based on his actual income, and the unpaid temporary support would be repaid on a schedule. The money spent on the other woman would be counted against Mark's share of the marital property. We would use the parenting application for all communication. Neither of us could speak badly about the other in front of the children. The school district could not be changed without agreement. When I signed, I did not feel triumphant. I felt relieved, tired, sad for the life I had believed we were building. But I did not regret leaving. Justice does not always feel like winning. Sometimes it only makes you safe enough to admit how exhausted you are. Outside the courthouse, Mark said, "You took this too far." I looked at him and said, "I only asked for the record to show what happened." Then I went back to work. A week later, Denise placed a leadership application on my desk. "You have been doing this job for years," she said. "The title is the only thing that has not caught up." I signed my name. For the first time, I did not ask anyone else whether I was ready. For the first time, I signed my name without wondering whether anyone else believed I was ready. The interview came 2 weeks later. I had worked in that department for years. I had the certification. I had trained new employees, corrected filing problems, and helped reduce a backlog that had frustrated doctors for months. Denise never mentioned my divorce. The promotion was not a rescue, it was recognition. When I became team lead, the raise did not make me wealthy, it did something better. I could pay rent without checking my balance every night. I opened an emergency account in my own name. I paid the insurance on time. Lucy joined an art class, and Ben started soccer. A few months later, we moved into a 3-bedroom rental in the same school district. The house was modest, the kitchen floor creaked near the sink, and the bathroom faucet dripped unless you turned it hard to the left. But each child had a bed. Emma had a room where she could close the door and leave her backpack on the floor. Even then, she still asked how long the lease lasted. She kept spare clothes inside her school bag. Unexpected knocks made her look toward me. Before we left, she checked whether Ben had his coat. I took her to the school counselor. The counselor explained that children who lose housing suddenly often try to control small things. They pack too quickly. They worry about money. They expect adults to change their minds without warning. So I began telling Emma what she needed to know. The rent was paid. She was not responsible for her brother or sister. No one could take them from school without my knowledge. If anything changed, I would tell her first. Slowly, her shoulders stopped tightening whenever the doorbell rang. Then the hospital posted a picture announcing my promotion. 3 days later, my mother texted that she had always known I was strong. My father emailed that families should move forward. Megan sent several paragraphs explaining that her words had been misunderstood. Jason said nothing. None of them admitted they had closed the door. None admitted they had believed Mark before hearing me. None mentioned the school pickup. An apology without a specific truth is often just a request for the injured person to make everyone else comfortable. I answered once. I told them I had read their messages. I was not ready to meet. When that changed, I would contact them. A week before Thanksgiving, my mother wrote that everyone would come on Sunday. I replied, "Do not come. I have not agreed to a visit." She did not answer. On Sunday afternoon, the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw my parents, Megan, a pumpkin pie, and Jason, who had not sent me one word in 18 months. Through the front window, I saw the 4 people who had once watched my father close a door on my children. My mother held a pumpkin pie. My father stood beside her. Megan was crying, and Jason stayed a few steps back, looking anywhere but at me. 18 months earlier, I had been outside with 3 children and 1 black bag. I had asked for 2 weeks of safety. This time, I stood inside a home I paid for, while the children set the table. I stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind me. My mother said we could not keep living like this. My father reminded me that 18 months had passed. Megan said the children needed family. They spoke about time. None of them spoke about what they had done. "Do you remember what I asked for that day?" I asked my mother. She said the situation had been complicated. I asked for a safe place for 3 children for 2 weeks. Then I looked at my father. "Do you remember Emma standing behind me?" He lowered his eyes. He said he had done what he believed was best. I asked Megan whether she still believed leaving an unfaithful husband was selfish. She said she had used the wrong words. "No, you used the words you believed. What you have not done is admit those beliefs hurt us." Finally, I looked at Jason. "Do you have anything to say?" He said he did not want to be dragged into family drama. "You stepped into it when you laughed as the door closed." Jason left first. I told the others I was not saying they could never see the children, but there would be conditions. They could not rewrite that day. They could not call my divorce impulsive. They could not tell the children that I had broken the family. They could not come to the school or my home without permission. If they wanted a relationship, it had to begin with a specific apology. After that, their actions had to match their words. My mother said I was punishing them. No, I am protecting what I built. Dignity was not making them feel the pain they had caused me. It was having the power to hurt them and choosing only to tell the truth. Megan stopped crying. My mother walked toward the car. My father stayed behind. "I knew there was room," he said. "I just was not brave enough to stand against everyone." I did not forgive him there. "Thank you for finally telling the truth." After they left, Emma asked if they would come inside next time. That depends on what they do, not what they say. A few days later, she brought home a notice for the school showcase. Her project was about resilience. She covered the bottom of the display board. "I want you to read that part when I am finished." 1 week later, I stood in the school gym and read the sentence Emma had hidden from me. The room smelled like weak coffee and floor polish. Trifold boards covered long tables. Parents moved between projects, while shoes echoed across the hardwood. Emma stood beside a board titled, "What Helps People Recover?" She had divided it into simple sections: routines, support, breaking large problems into smaller steps, knowing when to ask for help, refusing to let one failure decide the rest of your life. At the bottom, in her own handwriting, she had written, "Resilient people do not wait for someone to open the door. They take the next step." "I wrote that part myself," she said. "It is not from a source." I looked at my daughter and understood that she had not only studied resilience, she had lived it. 18 months had passed since that Sunday on my parents' porch. I was now a team lead at the hospital. I had an emergency fund in my own name. The rent on our 3-bedroom house was paid on time, and I no longer checked my balance at night. Emma asked less often when the lease ended. Lucy had covered one wall with horse drawings. Ben called the house our home without needing reassurance. They still saw Mark according to the schedule. Our communication stayed in writing. His relationship with the other woman ended after about a year, and he moved into a smaller apartment. That was not my victory. My victory was that his choices no longer controlled whether my children felt safe. My father began sending specific apologies. Megan started counseling and stopped calling my decision impulsive. My mother still struggled to admit what she had done. Jason never reached out. I did not rush them. They could come closer, only when their actions matched their words. I used to believe home was where family had to let you in. Now I know home is where safety is built, by people who show up, tell the truth, and stay. Blood may explain where we come from. Actions decide who gets to walk beside us. My worth did not rise when the hospital promoted me. It did not fall when my father closed that door. I became free when I stopped waiting for others to confirm it. My silence that day was not weakness. It was the moment I stopped wasting strength on people, determined not to see me. I did not take revenge by closing every door. I learned to keep the key. Before you leave, please tell me in the comments, on a scale from 1 to 10, how satisfied were you with the way I handled my husband and my family? Would you have opened that door or asked them to prove they had changed first?